Before computers or even calculators existed, someone built a machine that could predict eclipses and track planetary orbits. The Antikythera Mechanism, a collection of over 30 intricately stacked gears, was the world's first analog computer. Lean in closer to hear how this 2,000-year-old marvel disappeared for over 1,500 years. In 1938, near Baghdad, archaeologists unearthed a clay jar that held something peculiar, a copper cylinder wrapped around an iron rod. Not artwork, not storage, but perhaps energy? Imagine holding it in your hands. Terracotta still gritty with soil. Inside, traces of acidic residue, vinegar, maybe lemon juice, hint at a chemical reaction. Electric potential from an age before light bulbs. How curious. Some suggest it powered electroplating. Others say it had religious or healing purposes. Or perhaps it was an accidental discovery, left behind by someone chasing an entirely different dream. Whatever its true function, this Baghdad Battery hums with quiet possibility. That someone, long ago, thought to trap lightning in clay. A whisper of modern science in the dust of ancient Persia. And though scholars still debate, one thing remains clear. Electricity might have flickered long before Franklin flew his kite. Can you feel that tiny buzz between your fingers? The past, gently humming. You are now stepping into a marble chamber in Alexandria, where steam curls beneath copper. In the 1st century CE, Hero of Alexandria invented something mesmerizing. The aeolipile, a hollow sphere mounted on a pair of tubes, spun wildly when steam escaped its bent nozzles. It looked like magic, but it was the world's first steam engine. You might be thinking, wait, did the ancient Greeks almost invent the locomotive? And yes, in a way, they did. But Hero's spinning orb was used only as a temple curiosity, a divine illusion. It hissed, twirled, and vanished back into obscurity. What if they had realized its power? What if industry had begun 1,500 years earlier? The aeolipile remained a toy in history's attic. No pistons, no rails, just the sound of steam and wonder. And yet, every time a train chugs forward or a turbine spins, somewhere, quietly, the spirit of Hero's sphere is turning with it. The future was spinning all along, just no one held the string. Around the 3rd century CE, Zhuge Liang, or perhaps engineers before him, created a curious cart. No matter how it turned, a pointer on top always showed the same direction, south. No magnet, no stars, just wheels, gears, and pure mechanical genius. It worked using a differential gear system. As the wheels moved and rotated, a set of gears inside calculated and compensated. So the pointer didn't track the earth, but the turning of the wheels themselves. Used in military expeditions, or perhaps rituals, the south-pointing chariot predated the compass. It's said Emperor Wu of Liang marveled at one rolling through his court, the pointer steady even on winding palace paths. You might not see it today, but its principles live inside every car, every GPS, every gear-driven tool we take for granted. Imagine inventing direction without magnetism, just math, just motion, just mind. And as you close your eyes, consider this. The world may feel chaotic, but somewhere inside it, someone once built a machine that never lost its way. In 1901, divers off the Greek island of Antikythera discovered what looked like a lump of rock and bronze. It took decades before scientists realized they were holding the earliest known analog computer, dated to around 100 BCE. It could predict eclipses, track planetary orbits, and even schedule Olympic Games. Gears stacked upon gears, more than 30 of them, each with teeth so fine they rivaled 18th century clockwork. It lived in a wooden box, on its face, rotating dials. Inside, the mind of an astronomer etched in bronze. How had such mechanical knowledge disappeared for nearly 1,500 years? What minds dreamed it? What hands built it? Today, only fragments remain, corroded by the sea, but replicas now sit in museums, spinning quietly once again. You hold a smartphone, but 2,000 years ago, someone held a machine that could track the stars. Sleep with that thought. The cosmos, spinning gently, inside a box. Now let's walk the broken roads of Rome and marvel at what still stands. Roman concrete, called opus caementicum, wasn't just strong, it was alive. Made from volcanic ash, lime, and seawater, it hardened underwater and healed itself over time. Unlike modern concrete, it resisted erosion for centuries. The Pantheon, the Colosseum, sea walls and harbors, all still standing, whispering secrets through the cracks. Scientists today still study its chemistry, hoping to copy it, to build bridges that don't crumble, buildings that outlast empires, all from a recipe lost for over 1,000 years. What makes it so magical? Tiny crystals grow inside the cracks, sealing damage like bone mending itself. You don't often think of concrete as wise, but here, beneath your feet, is ancient intelligence, not in a scroll, not in a statue, but in stone. And when you next pass a crumbling wall, maybe wonder, did it once live? You are now in 17th century Scotland, where wood clicks under candlelight. John Napier, a mathematician, carved strange rods from ivory and wood, each marked with rows of digits. They weren't magic, but they did feel like it. These were the Napier bones, tools that made multiplication easier, even for those who feared math. Place them side by side, trace a finger down the columns, and numbers align, just like that. A mechanical shortcut to arithmetic. Before calculators, before computers, there were rods in pockets. Merchants used them, surveyors, even astronomers. It was clever simplicity. An idea passed between fingers, not screens. Wood and thought, shaped into something gentle. In a world where numbers can feel cold, Napier warmed them with wood and wit. And somewhere in a drawer, those bones may still be counting quietly. In ancient Syracuse, Archimedes needed to drain a ship's hold. So he built a device, a spiraled tube inside a hollow cylinder. As it turned, water moved upward, defying gravity. This was the Archimedes screw, a simple tool still used today in irrigation and machinery. Think of its rhythm, turning, lifting, repeating, like breath. Farmers across the world, Egypt, India, Greece, eventually used versions to irrigate fields. Engineers later adapted it for mines, for canals, for power. And yet it's just a twist, a spiral in motion. Sometimes invention doesn't look like a breakthrough. It looks like a slow swirl of water, rising one loop at a time. The world changes not in leaps, but turns. You are now aboard a wooden ship, the wind taut in its sails, and fear on the waves. In the 7th century, the Byzantine navy unleashed something terrible and strange. Greek fire. It clung to water, burned on the sea, and could not be extinguished. Its recipe? Lost. Its method? Secret. But it was likely a blend of naphtha, sulfur, and perhaps quicklime. Shot from siphons or clay grenades, it changed naval warfare for centuries. But what's most haunting isn't the flame, it's the silence it left behind. Even now, historians can't fully recreate it. The mystery of the flame lives on, burning quietly in manuscripts and memory. Some inventions blaze bright, others just smolder forever. It's a shaduf, an ancient tool, older than pyramids, still used across parts of Africa and the Middle East. A long pole, counterweight at one end, bucket on the other. It dips into the water, rises, and pours life into the soil. It's irrigation, elevated, simple mechanics, human rhythm, and it doesn't hum. It sighs, a gentle arc, a return, again and again. Some say it taught early civilizations the value of leverage. Others say it's a song of survival. And when the bucket tips over, spilling water onto thirsty ground, It feels like a small miracle repeating itself every day. You are now walking through a mountain pass in medieval Spain. You hear hammers echo in the wind. In the 8th century, Catalan smiths developed a forge so efficient it could produce iron with minimal fuel. Charcoal, air, and a clever chimney design meant higher heat and better iron. Unlike blast furnaces, it used bellows powered by water wheels, nature fueling nature. This small innovation led to stronger plows, sharper tools, and better armor. It shaped economies, villages, and battles. But it didn't roar, it breathed. The Catalan forge taught the world. Sometimes the fire doesn't need to be bigger, just smarter. And in that quiet forge, nestled in the Pyrenees, sparks once leapt that would later build empires. Hey friends, tilt your head back and picture a sky full of stars. Around 150 BCE, Greek inventors designed the astrolabe, an instrument to map the heavens. A brass disc, layered with rotating dials and cutouts, used to measure the altitude of stars and planets. Sailors used it to find their way at sea. Scholars used it to calculate time. Priests aligned it with prayer. It was the sky, captured in metal. Imagine holding one, a palm-sized cosmos. You spin the reed, adjust the latitude, and just like that, you've located Polaris. The stars are now coordinates, predictable, gentle, guiding. Later, Islamic scientists refined it. European monks copied it. It spread like starlight across empires. Today we have GPS, but back then someone found direction using brass and belief. When you next look up, remember, people once carried the stars in their pockets. Dear listener, welcome to the desert. In ancient Persia, cities didn't need air conditioners. They had wind catchers, tall towers with open slits, designed to catch desert breezes and funnel them into homes. Some pulled air downward, others drew hot air out. Together, they cooled buildings by natural convection. Built from mud brick and lined with water channels, they turned scorching heat into gentle wind. All without electricity. You can still find them in Yazd, their silhouettes rising like watchtowers of air. Their secret lies not in power, but in patience, in how they invite the wind, not force it. As you lie in bed tonight, imagine a silent breeze curling through stone corridors, and know that, even in the harshest places, someone always finds a way to build comfort into the sky. You are now deep in a rainforest village, where a hunter carries a slender tool of wood and bone. It's a fire piston, used for centuries across Southeast Asia, a small cylinder, a tight plunger, a single swift push, and fire is born. No flint, no spark, just pressure. When the piston compresses air rapidly, it heats to over 260 degrees, hot enough to ignite tinder at the tip. The idea predates lighters by centuries, and curiously, inspired the very invention of the diesel engine. Can you imagine? A jungle tool sparking the industrial age? Invention doesn't always begin in laboratories. Sometimes it lives in the rhythm of survival, in the click of carved wood, in breath and hands and heat. And maybe tonight, as you light a candle, you'll remember, fire once began with a soft push. Hey friends, let's listen to the whisper of a blade through air. Damascus steel, born in the Near East around 300 CE, was famed for its strength, sharpness, and swirling patterns, like smoke frozen in metal. Forged using Wootz steel from India, it combined iron and carbon in ways modern scientists struggled for centuries to replicate. The blades could slice silk mid-air. They resisted shattering. Some legends even claimed they could cleave a rifle barrel. And yet, the method was lost. By the 18th century, no one knew how to make true Damascus again. It's a story of heat, rhythm, and mystery. Metal folded and cooled, forged by touch, not thermometer. Today, metallurgists try to recreate it, but it's the silence that speaks louder, that something so strong could simply vanish, like a sword returning to its sheath it left quietly. Dear listener, step gently into the field beside a castle wall. A massive arm rises, a sling dangles, and with the fall of a heavy stone box, a boulder arcs through the sky. This is the counterweight trebuchet. Invented around the 12th century, it replaced men pulling ropes with pure physics. Instead of muscle, it used gravity, a drop to launch, a fall to rise, the elegance of imbalance. Its range exceeded older siege engines. Its force shattered walls. But behind the noise was brilliance, converting vertical weight into horizontal motion. Later, the principle would influence everything from catapults to cranes. But in that moment, just before release, it held stillness, a weight suspended, a quiet breath before the swing. And in the hush of bedtime, it reminds you, even gravity can be guided. You are now in a quiet room where the hum of thread blends with the tick of time. The spinning wheel arrived in India by the 11th century, then made its way to Europe. A foot pedal, a turning wheel, a spindle catching wool. Suddenly, spinning wasn't slow, it was rhythmic. With it, one person could produce yards of yarn each day, more than fingers alone ever could. The invention transformed economies. It made cloth more accessible. It gave women in small cottages a source of income and powered the cottage industries that would precede the Industrial Revolution. But in its heart, it was still domestic, still gentle, a grandmother at dusk, coaxing thread from fleece, a foot pressing wood in slow time. Tonight, as you listen, maybe picture the wheel, turning, not with haste, but harmony. Hey friends, fill a bowl, let it drip. That's the sound of time, at least for the ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Chinese. The clepsydra, or water clock, was one of the earliest timekeepers. A vessel with a small hole, slowly draining or filling to mark the passing hours. In temples, it timed rituals. In courts, it measured speeches. In gardens, it whispered time with every drop. Some were simple, others complex, filled with dials and floats, even gears to strike bells. Imagine it now, water falling in silence, time not ticking but flowing. We measure everything with numbers today, but once people measured the moment with water, a reminder that time, like sleep, is a gentle flow. Dear listener, step into a valley lit by orange glow. In 5th century China, metallurgists developed the blast furnace, using air blown into a fire to raise its temperature high enough to smelt iron directly from ore. The result? Stronger metal, faster production, more tools, weapons, and infrastructure. Europe followed centuries later. With the furnace came railways, bridges, and steel cities. But it all began with wind, bellows feeding fire, flames that whispered alchemy. The blast furnace wasn't loud. It roared with purpose. But within that roar was refinement, the transformation of rock into blade. And somewhere in its echo you can still hear progress breathing. You are now beside a millstone turning in slow rhythm. In 105 CE, paper was born in China. But it wasn't until the 13th century, in Moorish Spain, that water-powered paper mills appeared. Instead of hand-pounding, water wheels crushed fibers. The process quickened, the sheets multiplied, books and records flowed from riverbanks. Soon, towns had paper, schools had books, traders had ledgers. Thought moved faster than ever before. The mill made ideas portable, gave memory a form, all from the patient swirl of water and pulp. And even now, when you write something down, you echo that same gentle turn. Hey friends, if you're finding rest in these stories, don't forget to subscribe. It helps keep the wheel of wonder turning. Now enter a weaving hall where a loom sings softly. The treadle loom, likely from ancient China and perfected in medieval Europe, used foot pedals to lift warp threads, freeing both hands for the weft. This small shift transformed weaving. It became faster, more ergonomic. Cloth became cheaper, patterns more complex. Families could earn more. Societies dressed finer. Trade expanded. And yet, it all happened beneath the hush of wood and thread. Left, right, beat, pull, a dance performed in slippers. And as the loom rests in the dark, its rhythm might still echo in your heartbeat. Hey friends, dip into the past with your fingertips. Can you feel the ink? Before quills, Before fountain pens, there were reeds, hollow stems from the Nile's riverbanks, cut at an angle, split to a point. The ancient Egyptians, Greeks, and Romans used them to scratch meaning onto papyrus. One pen could last a few scrolls, and when the tip dulled, it was reshaped with a quick slice of a blade. No springs, no cartridges, just plant, ink, and thought. The reed pen allowed scribes to write faster than with styluses. It curved language into elegance. It gave poetry and contracts the same graceful spine. You can almost hear it, the scratch of papyrus beneath the nib, the pause as ink pools again. Without the reed, hieroglyphs might have stayed on stone. Without that simple tube, we might have waited centuries more for paper's dance partner. Funny, isn't it, how something so quiet can write history? You are now seated in a candlelit chamber in Han Dynasty China. On a polished stone surface lies a game board. Etched paths, ivory rods, tiny carved figurines. This is Liubo, a strategy game, popular around 500 BCE, a precursor to chess, Go, and many forgotten companions of the mind. The rules? Still debated. But fragments of instruction, unearthed from tombs, describe movement, capture, chance, and wisdom. It wasn't just leisure. Nobles played it for status. Shamans believed the board mirrored cosmic balance. Some even buried it with the dead to keep them company on their journey. And like many things, it vanished. By the Tang Dynasty, Liubo faded from homes and scrolls. Today, we know it only by the boards, tucked in museum cases, waiting for someone to guess the next move. A game lost in time, where the final piece never fell. Hey friends, let your breath slow. Now imagine music made from water. The hydraulis, or Roman water organ, was the first keyboard instrument. Invented in the 3rd century BCE by Ctesibius of Alexandria, it used water pressure to push air through pipes. A tank of water, bellows, bronze keys. From it came melodies that echoed through amphitheaters and palaces. Unlike flutes or lyres, it didn't rely on breath. It could roar like a trumpet or murmur like reeds in wind. Later, it inspired the pipe organs of cathedrals. But this one, this water-borne voice, was the first. Can you hear it? The trickle, the hiss, the harmony, rising like steam and sound combined. In an age before electricity, they let water sing. Dear listener, step lightly into medieval Tibet. Inside a quiet monastery, monks crafted something called the Kapala wheel. It wasn't made of gears or metal, but bone, wood, and silk. A manual prayer machine. Each rotation sent a mantra into the universe. Hundreds of prayers, spun with the flick of a wrist. Some were handheld, others the size of barrels. Inside, scrolls inked with sacred syllables. Outside, brass covers, bells, and breath. But here's what's remarkable. It used rotational repetition to amplify spiritual intention. In its way, it was both mechanical and metaphysical. Even now in Himalayan villages, wheels still turn in doorways, quietly, endlessly, carrying hope in circles. Sometimes revolution isn't political, it's spiritual, and all it takes is a single spin. Hey friends, sweeten this moment with a bit of history. In the 17th century, sugar refineries in the Caribbean began using something clever, the centrifuge. A barrel-like machine spun rapidly to separate molasses from raw sugar crystals. Before this, sugar was laboriously drained through clay cones for days. The centrifuge cut that time to hours. The crystals were purer, the profits soared. And though it sounds simple, it marked the beginning of industrial food processing. The same principle would later extract oils, purify medicines, and even spin blood in labs. But it began with sugar and spin. Close your eyes, feel the whirl, taste the sweetness that followed. Not all revolutions are loud, some are just sweet. You are now aboard a dhow, sailing the Arabian Sea under velvet skies. In the 9th century, Arab sailors used the kamal, a small rectangular card knotted with string, to measure latitude. They held it at arm's length, aligning the horizon with one edge and the pole star with another. The number of knots told them how far north or south they were. It was simple, portable, elegant, and long before sextants or compasses arrived in the West, the Kamal guided traders from Africa to India. Imagine using just stars and string to navigate thousands of miles. Tonight, the sky hasn't changed, and somewhere out there, the sea still waits for quiet travelers. Hey friends, step onto a Roman road, so straight it disappears into the distance. How did they do it? With the groma, a surveying tool used by Roman engineers. A vertical staff, cross-shaped arms, and hanging plumb lines. By sighting along the lines, surveyors created perfect right angles and long linear paths. Roads, aqueducts, city grids, all drawn from the groma's quiet alignment. You wouldn't think such a simple tool could guide empires, but it did. Even today, modern surveying traces its roots back to this wooden cross and string. Sometimes the clearest way forward is drawn in silence. Dear listener, listen closely for the swish of something unusual. In southern India, warriors once trained with a weapon unlike any other, the urumi, a sword made of ribbon-thin, flexible steel. When wielded, it curled through the air like a whip, sharp, silent, hypnotic. It could strike multiple opponents in one sweeping arc. It required dance-like precision, and in the wrong hands, it was as dangerous to the user as the foe. The urumi wasn't forged for brute strength. It was built for grace, for flow, for rhythm. Today, it survives mostly in martial arts forms, coiled at the waist like a belt, waiting. It reminds us that power can be flexible, that movement itself can be a blade. Hey friends, lie back a moment, on a bed that warms from below. In ancient northern China, homes featured something called the kang, a platform bed built of brick or stone connected to a flue. When a fire was lit in the hearth, hot smoke would pass underneath the kang before escaping. The bed stayed warm through the night, even as the fire died. Families gathered on it, ate, slept, told stories. No wires, no switches, just clever architecture turning heat into comfort. And even now, some rural homes still use kangs in winter. Stone and smoke keeping cold at bay. Isn't it lovely when walls themselves know how to care for you? Dear listener, peek behind a parchment scroll. In the 15th century, long before encrypted apps, papal messengers used a mechanical marvel, the cipher wheel. 2 rotating discs marked with letters and symbols. By turning them to a preset key, one could encode or decode secret messages, quick, secure, elegant. Invented by Leon Battista Alberti, it's now considered one of the first mechanical encryption tools. It whispered secrets across kingdoms, protected diplomacy, hid intentions beneath ink. Later, its principles shaped war ciphers, diplomatic codes, even the foundations of modern cryptography. And it all began with 2 turning circles. Isn't it comforting to know that even secrets have rhythm? Hey friends, climb gently into the saddle, because tonight we're riding into transformation. Before the 4th century CE, horses were hard to command in battle. Then came the stirrup, likely from Central Asia. A small loop of leather or iron attached to the saddle, holding a rider's foot in place. With it, balance became second nature. Riders could fight, turn, and stay mounted with far more control. Cavalry became dominant. Kingdoms shifted. It was just a footrest, and yet it changed warfare, travel, and agriculture. Europe adopted it centuries later, shaping knights and feudal power. Step by step, the stirrup helped build the Middle Ages. A quiet invention, 2 loops, and the world sat firmer in the saddle ever since. Sometimes history turns not on thrones but on toes. Dear listener, picture a bucket rising from a well, again and again and again. The chain pump, used as early as the Han Dynasty in China, was a loop of discs or paddles mounted on a chain. As the chain turned, by hand, animal, or water wheel, each disc scooped and lifted water. Farmers used it to irrigate rice fields. Miners drained shafts with it. Cities watered gardens. It was reliable, repeatable, gentle. Centuries later, the same principle powered fire engines, fountains, and canal systems. And though we now use wires and motors, somewhere quietly, a chain still turns. Isn't it soothing? The rhythm of effort, flowing upward. You are now tracing circles with your finger, somewhere in 13th century Persia. Nasir al-Din al-Tusi, a mathematician and astronomer, developed a simple but brilliant geometric model, the Tusi couple, 2 circles, one inside the other. As the smaller rotated within the larger, a point on its edge traced a straight line back and forth. Circular motion, generating linear movement. Why does it matter? Because it lets scholars explain planetary motion more accurately. Centuries before Copernicus, it refined Ptolemaic astronomy without needing a telescope. The Tusi couple inspired European thinkers, but its name faded from memory. Just 2 circles, dancing, teaching the stars how to behave. Who knew the cosmos could be calmed by geometry? Hey friends, step into a Parisian attic filled with silver and glass. In 1839, Louis Daguerre perfected a new way to trap light, on polished silver plates. The daguerreotype was born, but there was a hidden trick. The image appeared in reverse. So Daguerre invented a viewing device with angled mirrors to flip it back to reality. You'd peek inside a small frame and suddenly see a portrait, as if looking into someone's soul. This tiny mirror system preserved dignity, restored direction, and allowed people to see themselves the way they truly looked. It's not often we think of mirrors as inventions, but here, they gently stitched reality back together. Sometimes all it takes is a well-placed reflection to make the world clearer again. Dear listener, let's watch a bridge rise. In ancient Rome, engineers perfected the semicircular arch. But the secret wasn't just in the stones. It was in the falsework. A temporary wooden frame held each stone in place until the keystone was set. Then, the wood was removed, and the arch stood on its own. This method allowed larger spans, aqueducts, viaducts, bridges still standing 2,000 years later. You rarely see the falsework. It's removed before the unveiling. But without it, nothing would hold. A quiet kind of support, invisible but essential. Like lullabies beneath dreams, some structures only exist because something once held them softly. Hey friends, peer into something delicate. In 9th century Persia, artisans in Nishapur created glass lenses, small, slightly convex, used perhaps for magnification or fire starting. They weren't as refined as modern optics, but they showed someone had already noticed. Glass can bend light. Long before telescopes or microscopes, someone used a lens to see closer. That curved shard of glass, unearthed in the desert, sparked wonder in modern historians. Was it a reading aid? A tool for fine work? A philosopher's toy? Whatever its purpose, it bent both light and time. And it proved something lovely. Even before we understood optics, we understood awe. You are now sitting by an open window, where a breeze moves through strings. The Aeolian harp, named after Aeolus, god of wind, isn't played by hands. It's played by air. Invented in antiquity, but popularized in the 17th and 18th centuries, it's a simple box with tightly stretched strings. Set it near a window, and the wind itself makes music. Long, ghostly, resonant notes. Poets adored it, scientists studied it, romantics called it the breath of the heavens. It makes music with no player, only presence. And as you drift tonight, maybe imagine your window humming softly in its sleep. Hey friends, warm your toes near a quiet kind of fire. In 1742, Benjamin Franklin designed a metal-lined fireplace that projected heat forward instead of up the chimney, the Franklin stove. It used a baffle to trap and recirculate hot air. Rooms stayed warmer, wood burned slower, chimneys drew cleaner. Unlike open hearths, it didn't blaze. It glowed, efficient, safe, subtle. People gathered around it, read by it, dried their socks and told their stories. And while it didn't roar with invention, it quietly warmed a continent. Some genius, you see, arrives on embered feet. Dear listener, Feel a thread between your fingers. In the Inca Empire, language wasn't always written. It was tied. The quipu, a series of knotted strings, was used to record information. Numbers, dates, census records, perhaps even poetry. Knots varied by position, type, and spacing. It was a binary system long before computers, soft data in strands. Carried by runners across mountain roads, they told stories the way silk tells wind. Most quipu secrets remain unread. But we know this: they were memory, held in thread. Not all languages are spoken, some are braided. Hey friends, let's follow a trail beneath the sea. In ancient Greece, near the Isthmus of Corinth, a paved trackway called the Diolkos allowed ships to be hauled overland on wheeled platforms, across 6 kilometers of stone grooves. Instead of sailing around the Peloponnese, mariners took a shortcut, pulled by manpower and planning. It predates railroads by over 2,000 years. Grooved stones, pulley systems, precise logistics. Once lost to memory, the Diolkos was rediscovered in fragments, like footsteps hardened in stone. A shipping lane carved into the earth itself. And when the sea was too long, the Greeks simply invented land travel for boats. A reminder, sometimes the best detour is direct. Hey friends, close your eyes and listen to the first whisper of music. Roughly 40,000 years ago, deep in the caves of modern-day Germany, someone carved holes into a hollow bird bone. The result? The world's oldest known musical instrument, the bone flute. It wasn't loud, just a few gentle notes, but through that flute came rhythm, repetition, maybe even lullabies by firelight. Crafted from vulture wing or mammoth tusk, its tone may have echoed alongside the voices of early humans, soothing infants, calling hunters, honoring the stars. We don't know the melodies they played, but we know they made them. And in that breath of sound carved from bone, history began to sing. Even before language, music found a way. Dear listener, you are now walking beside a bubbling spring. In 1796, Joseph Montgolfier, yes, the hot air balloon pioneer, created something lesser known, the hydraulic ram pump. This clever machine needs no electricity. It uses the momentum of flowing water to lift a smaller amount higher uphill. A click, a thump, a surge, water moving water. Rural farms used it to irrigate land above the stream. Mountain homes used it to fill cisterns. It's simple, durable, and still used in remote places today. You could hear it in the woods, a soft pulsing, almost like a heart beneath the soil. Isn't it comforting? When nature itself does the lifting, you are now descending stone steps into the earth. In medieval India, engineers built step wells, architectural marvels that collected and stored water during dry seasons. With rows of carved steps leading deep into a reservoir, they offered access even as water levels dropped. Some were narrow and hidden. Others, like Rani Ki Vav, were grand, with sculptures and shaded corridors. Women gathered here to draw water. Travelers rested in the cool. Stories were shared where air was damp and echoing. They weren't just wells, they were temples to water. And though many are now dry, their silence still speaks. Even thirst, it seems, inspired beauty. Hey friends, peer into the sharp edge of time. Obsidian, volcanic glass, has been used for tools since the Stone Age. But even today, its blades are sharper than steel. Under a microscope, they appear flawless, molecularly smooth. Ancient Mesoamerican surgeons used obsidian scalpels to cut with precision, and in modern labs, they've been tested for delicate surgeries. How strange, right? A material from ancient lava, sharper than anything modern metallurgy can create. It breaks easily but slices cleanly, a reminder that the past didn't just carve stone, it mastered it, and that some of the sharpest minds worked in silence. Dear listener, follow a river that doesn't fight nature. Over 2,000 years ago, Chinese engineer Li Bing designed the Dujiangyan irrigation system. Instead of damming the river, he redirected it gently. The key? Hanging canal locks, sluices carved into rock and split channels. They managed flooding while watering fields. It was passive, sustainable, and still functions today, without concrete or pumps. The water moves like breath, guided, not contained. A system that never needed rebuilding, just respect. And perhaps that's the lesson. Sometimes the wisest control is release. Hey friends, let's roll back time, like a scroll. In ancient Sparta, generals used a device called the cytale, a strip of parchment wound around a rod. Messages were written across it, then unwound and passed along. To read it, the recipient needed a rod of the same size, otherwise it looked like nonsense. This simple transposition cipher was among the earliest encryption methods. No locks, no keys, just shape and secrecy. A message hidden in plain sight, like whispers wrapped in ribbon. And it makes you wonder, how many secrets were never unwound? You are now in a medieval monastery where gears click like ticking prayers. In the 13th century, European clockmakers developed the counterweight escapement, a clever mechanism that regulated energy in early tower clocks. Weights powered the gears. The escapement escaped one notch at a time, allowing precise movement of the hands. It turned cathedrals into timekeepers, bells into hours. Society began to live by the tick instead of the sun. But it all began with a slow, measured fall. One weight, one swing, one moment at a time. Even now your clock echoes their pace. Dear listener, squint gently into the Arctic light. Long before sunglasses, Inuit hunters crafted snow goggles from bone, wood, or ivory. Narrow slits cut into them reduced the sun's glare on ice, preventing snow blindness. The design was simple and effective. Slits focused vision. Materials blocked ultraviolet light. They didn't block sight, they shaped it. Formed from driftwood and whalebone, these goggles made hunting possible in whiteout conditions, and inspired modern optics centuries later. Sometimes vision isn't about adding, it's about narrowing the light until you see clearly. Hey friends, now we enter a house where air keeps things cool. In ancient Baghdad, homes used badgers, wind towers that caught breezes and funneled them into underground storage rooms called sardabs. Combined with evaporative cooling from nearby pools, these rooms could stay cold even in desert heat. Early refrigeration, without wires or freon. Meat stayed fresh, milk didn't spoil, rest came easier, and all from wind and water, gently moving downward. Even now, some traditional homes whisper with cool air, a past breeze still working. Hey friends, if you've been dreaming your way through these stories, don't forget to subscribe. It helps us keep these quiet inventions turning. Now step into a British mill beside a rushing stream. In 1769, Richard Arkwright patented the water frame, a spinning machine powered by a water wheel. It spun stronger threads, faster than hand spinners, and unlike earlier jennies, it worked with almost no human labor. This invention jump-started the Industrial Revolution's textile boom. Cloth became cheaper, factories grew, cities expanded. But at its core, it was just water, turning gears. A stream, made steady. A motion, made endless. Even the greatest shifts begin with a small turn. Hey friends, step into the shadows where air itself becomes an architect. In the hot, dry cities of ancient Persia, builders created walls with two skins, parallel layers of mud brick or stone with a gap in between. As air passed through this cavity, it cooled naturally. This double-wall design, combined with wind catchers and shaded courtyards, made homes surprisingly comfortable in 40-degree heat. No fans, no wires. The air moved gently, carrying whispers of coolness from room to room. Centuries before modern insulation, someone noticed. Space, not just substance, keeps things cool. Sometimes it's not the wall, but the breath between that holds the magic. Dear listener, lift your gaze toward a medieval cathedral spire. How did they haul stones that heavy, that high? With the treadwheel crane, a giant hamster wheel for humans. As workers walked inside, the wheel turned, winding rope around a drum to lift weight. Used across Europe from Roman times through the 15th century, it helped build castles, bridges, and towers. Its secret wasn't speed, it was leverage, human weight, gravity, and a wheel. You can still see iron rings and old stone walls, where tread wheels once spun, lifting dreams into the sky. The heaviest burdens sometimes rise on footfall. Hey friends, float back to the 16th century and look at the shell of a ship. Korean Admiral Yi Sun-sin built the Gyeobukseon, the turtle ship. Iron-plated, low-slung, and fiercely mobile. But its forgotten genius? The roof. Studded with spikes and hidden flamethrowers, it prevented boarding, forcing enemy soldiers to fall back. No one could jump aboard. No one could take it easily. It was one of the earliest examples of proactive ship defense. Steel claws in the sea. Sometimes protection isn't a wall, it's a thorn. You are now in a city of sand and sun where water was once sacred. In ancient Alexandria, a device known as the clepsydra thief allowed guards or officials to measure, then limit, how much water was poured from communal fountains. A tapered vessel with hidden holes. As it filled, itself leaked, regulating time and quantity. Pour too slowly, and the water simply vanished. It was fair, quiet, automatic. An early form of metering, long before plumbing or payment systems. Isn't it fascinating? Even justice can drip slowly through clay. Hey friends, rest your eyes on a spinning thread of time. The spindle whorl, used across ancient cultures from Peru to Mesopotamia, was a small disc fitted to a stick, helping fibers spin into yarn. Made from bone, clay, or stone, it added weight and rhythm to the twirl. Spinning became smoother, threads more even. Before factories, before wheels, there was the human hand and the whorl. Its gentle rotation echoes across millennia, under porches, beside fires, by the knees of mothers and daughters. Spin after spin, history was woven. Dear listener, step down into a desert dome of ice. In ancient Iran, engineers built yakchals, massive mud brick cones used to store ice during blistering summers. By channeling cool night air and using underground insulation, they froze water in winter and preserved it year-round. No wires, no motors, just earth, wind, and wisdom. Inside, temperatures dropped far below the heat above. A perfect stillness. To walk into one was to feel snow in the desert. Even in heat, some people knew how to dream of cold. Hey friends, glance into a glint of protection. In the 10th century, warriors of the Rus and Central Asia wore mirror armor. Discs of polished steel attached to leather or mail. They weren't just for defense. Some believed the shiny surfaces deflected evil, not just arrows. Practical and symbolic, reflective and resilient. Sunlight danced on the plates as soldiers marched. Enemies saw themselves approaching. Perhaps it gave pause. To shield the body is one thing. To shine it back, that's something else entirely. You are now seated in the court of Han Dynasty, China, 132 CE. A bronze urn with 8 dragon heads circles the room. Each holds a ball in its mouth. Suddenly, clink, a ball drops into a frog's open mouth. Zhang Heng's seismograph had just detected an earthquake, hundreds of miles away. Inside, a suspended rod swayed with vibrations, releasing the correct ball to indicate direction. No electricity, just balance, weight, and elegance. It was the first instrument to listen to the earth's tremble. Sometimes the ground speaks softly, and someone was there to hear it. Hey friends, tap gently on polished wood. The sorobun, Japan's version of the abacus, evolved in the 17th century. Beads slid along rods, each position representing a value. With practice, users could calculate faster than early calculators. It wasn't just math, it was motion, memory, and meditation. Even today, sorobun competitions test speed and accuracy. Some users develop mental sorobun, visualizing the beads without touching them. A calculator that taught you to count with your mind and hands. Numbers as rhythm. Dear listener, we end tonight's part beside the Orontes River in Syria. Here, for over 1,000 years, massive wooden water wheels, norias, scooped water into aqueducts. Some over 20 meters tall, they creaked with wind and water. No engines, no steam, just flow. Used for irrigation and public fountains, they turned with grace, not speed. Today, a few still spin, half relic, half rhythm. And when you stand nearby, you hear it. The sigh of wood, the hush of buckets, the echo of thirst quenched. Sometimes progress simply turns in circles. Hey friends, dip your fingers into cold northern water. The kajak, what we now call the kayak, was crafted by Inuit peoples over 4,000 years ago. Each one was handmade to fit the paddler's body like a second skin. A frame of driftwood or bone covered in seal skin stretched tight. It was silent, fast, almost invisible to prey. Hunters glided through icy fjords, paddling with one hand, balancing with the other, listening for seals or birds. These crafts could roll, turn, vanish beneath waves, then reappear. Each kayak was a whisper in motion, a story of survival stitched with sinew. And though modern versions are molded from plastic, the soul of the kajak remains. Imagine floating now, skimming over water so still it reflects stars. The best inventions, like the best journeys, begin quietly. Dear listener, picture time trickling through brass and beauty. In 1206, in what is now Iraq, engineer Al-Jazari built a water-powered clock, shaped like an elephant, with hidden weights, levers, and bowls. It chimed every half hour and reset itself, with figures that moved and animals that bowed. It was both timepiece and performance. His book of inventions would influence mechanics for centuries, but this clock, part sculpture, part science, was a wonder. It didn't just measure hours, it told stories in motion. And it reminds us, sometimes time ticks with grace. Hey friends, now lift your face toward the sun. Long before wristwatches, European shepherds carried small sticks carved with markings. These were shepherd's dials, portable sundials designed to tell the hour using the angle of sunlight and a length of string. The dial had month-adjusted guides. Hold it right, and the shadow pointed to the time. It was simple, elegant, fitted in a pocket. Used in open fields, on lonely hillsides, it kept time with the sky, not the bell tower. And perhaps on your next walk you'll notice the shadows, still telling stories. You are now standing in a lantern-lit study, where incense floats like breath. In ancient China, time was sometimes kept by fire. Thin ropes or sticks, marked at intervals, burned steadily. As the flame reached each knot, a bell might ring or a bead would fall. These fire clocks were used at night in temples and in homes without light. Some burned oils, some coiled incense, but all measured time with glow, scent, and ash. They didn't tick, they softened, a reminder that time too can flicker gently. Hey friends, look at stone as if it could speak. In medieval Armenia, artisans carved kachkars, cross stones, with intricate symbols, lace-like filigree, and codes. Some researchers believe a few even stored agricultural cycles or celestial markers. They weren't just grave markers, they were calendars, prayers, records set in basalt, each stone unique, each one humming with meaning. Even now, no two kachkars are alike. It's easy to forget. Stone, too, can carry memory. Dear listener, imagine water flowing underground in the desert. For over 2 millennia, Persian engineers built qanats, tunnels sloping gently from distant mountains to dry plains. They brought water without pumps, preserving pressure and purity. Wells connected to the surface at intervals, allowing maintenance, air, and access. Entire cities bloomed around these invisible rivers. A garden in Shiraz, a bathhouse in Yazd, all made possible by patient tunnels below. Beneath your feet, someone once carved water from rock. Hey friends, take a seat at a Renaissance table. In 15th century Florence, artists began folding and tying cloth napkins into shapes. Birds, towers, even animals. Some believe these folded napkins helped inspire early notation for visual storytelling and dining etiquette. A goose beside your plate, a fan behind your spoon. Not exactly origami, but close. A dance of cloth, hinting at hospitality. Even now you might see echoes of it in restaurant folds. A quiet touch of art nestled in linen. You are now standing in an Indian temple courtyard where shadow is sacred. In places like Konark and Delhi, massive stone sundials, called gnomons, were used to measure time with incredible accuracy. As the sun shifted, the shadow traced out seconds and seasons alike. Priests read them not just for time but for festivals, farming, and prophecy. Some were aligned with solstices. Others marked the zodiac. To them, light and stone weren't opposites. They were instruments. And so the sun became a clock and time a dance of shade. Hey friends, tilt your head to the stars. In 1st century China, astronomers crafted the armillary sphere, an instrument of rings representing celestial paths. They spun around a central Earth, tracking stars, planets, and solstices. It wasn't just for watching, it was for understanding. Later, Europe adopted the design, but its origin, quiet, brass, precise, was rooted in ancient Chang'an. To look through one was to turn the heavens by hand. And maybe one night soon you'll look up and feel the same pull. Dear listener, we end this chapter with a flutter of clockwork feathers. In 18th century Geneva, artisans crafted miniature mechanical birds. Hidden in jeweled boxes, they sang when wound, moving beaks, wings, and eyes. The secret? Cam-like wheels, bellows, and tiny bellows? It wasn't electronics. It was craftsmanship. Kings gifted them. Poets adored them. Watchmakers studied them. A bird made of gears, chirping like spring. It's strange, isn't it? Sometimes we build machines not to solve, but simply to wonder. And somewhere, behind velvet curtains, a song still waits to be wound. Hey friends, place your fingers on the edge of a glass. In 1761, Benjamin Franklin created the glass harmonica, a series of glass bowls mounted on a spindle. As the wheel turned, wet fingers played notes by touch. It produced an ethereal sound, haunting, angelic. Mozart composed for it. Marie Antoinette took lessons. Doctors once believed its tones could calm nerves or disturb them, but it fell out of fashion, too delicate, too strange. Still, it remains one of the few instruments made to sing with water and skin, a voice drawn from the edge of a circle, and sometimes invention is just resonance. Dear listener, step softly into Alexandria, where music meets mechanics. In the 3rd century BCE, Ctesibius crafted one of the earliest keyboard instruments, the hydraulis. But its hidden wonder was the valve system. Using air pressure from water to move through pipes, Ctesibius invented one of the earliest known pressure regulators. A system of levers and plungers controlled airflow, letting music emerge with precision. His invention later inspired fountains, steam engines, even organs in European cathedrals. It began not with wires but water, a song, pulled from the throat of plumbing. Hey friends, run your fingers down something smooth. In ancient China, silk merchants used measuring reels, wooden spindles with fixed arms to count lengths of silk thread. Each turn meant a precise amount. Fair trade depended on it. It wasn't grand, but it was honest. These reels spun in market stalls and palaces alike. They helped build the Silk Road, not just in fabric but in trust. You might call it the first textile ledger. Even thread, when measured well, becomes a bridge. You are now standing at a stone temple watching blocks rise. In the 6th century BCE, Greek builders developed a wooden winch, a crankshaft powered by workers, ropes, and pulleys. With it, they lifted stone blocks weighing tons. Marks on ancient stones show the U-shaped clamps used. Holes in marble tell of levers once there. Before engines, this was motion, crank, hoist, place, a dance between humans and gravity. You can still feel the turn of that wheel in every building that touches the sky. Hey friends, listen for water behind the palace wall. In 12th century Damascus, engineer Ridwan built a water clock with dragons. Yes, dragons. Their mouths opened as hours passed, releasing balls into copper bowls below. The mechanism was clever. Camshafts and float regulators kept perfect rhythm. It was timekeeping through spectacle. Visitors waited to hear the next clang. Children watched the dragons breathe. It wasn't just about the hour, it was about wonder. And maybe that's the point of clocks. Not just to measure time, but to make it beautiful. Dear listener, lean closer. Something is about to serve you tea. In Edo period Japan, artisans made karakuri, mechanical dolls powered by springs and gears. One famous type was the tea-serving puppet. You'd place a cup on its tray. The puppet would roll forward, bow, wait for the cup to be removed, and return. No wires, no batteries, just clever clockwork and ritual. These machines weren't for productivity, they were for delight. They remind us, even in automation, there can be grace. Hey friends, step onto an ancient road after a storm. In Mycenae, more than 3,000 years ago, engineers built paved roads with graded surfaces and side drainage channels. The roads stayed dry, trade continued, cities thrived. It was infrastructure with foresight. The stones are still there, grooved with wheel ruts, silent evidence of planned passage. And while we rarely think of drains as revolutionary, sometimes keeping things flowing is the true invention. Dear listener, hike with me into the Andes. The Inca carved agricultural terraces into steep mountain slopes. Stone walls held soil. Channels irrigated each level. The result? Crops like quinoa thrived in high-altitude climates. These terraces stabilized slopes, preserved biodiversity, and still feed communities today. Each step in the mountain was a page in a farming book. Even now, their green patterns stretch for miles, curves in the earth that once fed an empire. Sometimes food grows best on the edge. Hey friends, look down at a spoon that points the way. Before the compass needle, ancient Chinese navigators used a lodestone spoon on a bronze plate. The spoon, magnetized by nature, always turned south. Crafted around the 4th century BCE, it guided travelers through deserts and mountains. Elegant, wordless, steady. You'd set it down, let it spin, and follow. Sometimes direction doesn't need a voice, just a spoon and trust. Dear listener, now climb through legend. If the Hanging Gardens of Babylon did exist, scholars believe their wonder wasn't just the plants, but what lay beneath. A multi-layered system of stone, reed, and asphalt to drain water and support soil. Water lifted by chain pulley systems flowed across terraces. The drainage below kept roots healthy and bricks dry. It was invisible genius, hydrology meeting horticulture. And while we debate whether the gardens truly stood, their imagined plumbing still teaches architects today. A garden above the sky, held together by what was buried deep. Hey friends, step barefoot across a warm stone floor. In ancient Rome, bathhouses and wealthy homes used the hypocaust, a central heating system hidden beneath the floor. A furnace outside sent hot air through raised pillars and wall flues, gently warming the rooms from below. No fans, no wires, just heat moving like breath beneath your feet. The floor stayed toasty, the walls stayed dry. It made winter comfortable and luxurious. Archaeologists still find soot stains in those ancient bricks. Whispered heat, centuries gone. And isn't it lovely to think that warmth once came from below, silent and slow? Dear listener, gaze up at a towering stone. In ancient Aksum, Ethiopia, artisans carved single pieces of granite into obelisks, some over 20 meters tall. But the miracle wasn't just the carving, it was the raising. They used sloped earth ramps, wooden pulleys, and something clever. Stone anchor pits that held pulley frames steady as the monoliths tilted upright. Even now, traces of those anchors remain, cut into the bedrock. A reminder that lifting isn't just strength, it's strategy. And every towering thing needs a hidden hand beneath it. Hey friends, picture a scholar surrounded by pages. In the 16th century, a man named Agostino Romelli designed the book wheel, a rotating shelf that let readers consult multiple open books at once without piling them on a desk. It looked like a Ferris wheel for knowledge. You'd turn the handle, the books would revolve, and each stayed open at the right page. A personal library carousel. Even then, multitasking had style. And maybe tonight, as your thoughts turn from story to story, you're spinning your own kind of book wheel. You are now drifting on the Pacific, guided by stars and swells. Polynesian navigators used stick charts, delicate frameworks of twigs and shells, to map wave patterns, island locations, and ocean currents. They weren't maps in the Western sense. They weren't even taken on voyages. Instead, they trained the mind to feel direction. Each curve of stick represented a swell, each shell an island. Navigation by memory, by rhythm, by sea. No compass, no sextant, just trust in wind and wave. Even the ocean has patterns, if you know how to feel them. Hey friends, wander now through Venice's stone courtyards. In Renaissance Italy, fresh water was precious. Wells were shallow. Rain was scarce. So engineers built water screws, spirals inside tubes, to lift water from canals into reservoirs. Some were hand-cranked, others used treadle power. They looked like toys but saved lives. Today, tourists admire the fountains above them, without seeing the coil beneath. Sometimes the real miracle is not what flows, but how it rises. Dear listener, kneel beside the fire in a thatched hall. In early medieval England, homes had sunken hearths, shallow pits in the floor, lined with stones, used for cooking and warmth. The placement helped hold heat low. Smoke rose through louvered rooftops, and embers stayed glowing longer into the night. Ashes were reused to insulate walls, fertilize gardens, or cure meats. It was humble engineering, but thoughtful. The glow that fed a home also fed a field, a fire serving quietly in 3 ways at once. Hey friends, listen for metal notes dancing on wood. The mbira, or thumb piano, is an ancient African instrument. Metal tines are plucked with the thumbs while the body resonates sound. But the hidden magic? Bottle caps or shells attached to the soundboard. They buzz gently with each note, adding a soft, shimmering vibration. The result? Music that feels like it's breathing. Used in ceremony and storytelling, the mbira didn't just play tunes. It echoed the spirit world. And sometimes the most beautiful sound is a quiet rattle behind a calm note. You are now watching mountaintops in the fading light. The Byzantine Empire used a series of fire beacons stretching from the eastern frontier to Constantinople, lighting them in sequence to relay urgent messages. Each fire station sat within line of sight of the next. Within hours, word of invasion or peace could cross hundreds of miles. Later, water clocks were added to transmit code by timing the flames. It wasn't just fire, it was language. And when the hills glowed one by one, it meant the empire was listening. Even now, communication begins with a light in the dark. Hey friends, float slowly down the Nile. In ancient Egypt, boats were made not only of wood, but papyrus reeds, bundled tightly, curved upward, and sealed with pitch. They were buoyant, flexible, and ideal for fishing or river travel. Light as cattails, strong as rafts. Some archaeologists believe these reed boats helped build the pyramids, hauling stone along canals in silence. They vanished with time, but their shape lives on in temple carvings and dreams of floating low and free. Even reeds can carry kings. Dear listener, kneel by a stone bowl filled with still water. At the entrance to a Japanese tea garden sits a tsukubai, a stone basin for guests to wash hands and mouth before entering. Fed by a bamboo pipe, it's set low to the ground, so you must bow to reach it, a ritual of humility before beauty. Some tsukubai are centuries old, water still trickling, not an invention of function, but of mindset. Cleanliness, calm, pause. Even a bowl of water can prepare the soul. Hey friends, walk into a stone tower older than Rome. In Bronze Age Sardinia, the Nuragic people built massive stone structures called nuraghi. Some had corbelled domes, spiral staircases, and a secret vertical ventilation shafts. These narrow hidden airways regulated temperature inside. In summer they cooled. In winter they retained warmth. No mortar, no metal, just shaped rock and intuition. Today their towers still stand, wind still threading through ancient stone. And sometimes the air knows more than we give it credit for. Dear listener, step beneath desert shade. For centuries, Bedouins wove tents from black goat hair. When dry, the fibers tightened, keeping heat out. But when it rained, the fibers swelled, sealing out water. Breathable, waterproof, portable. The tent was more than shelter. It was craft, culture, inheritance, threaded with memory, staked with wisdom. Even now, some nomads sleep under the same dark cloth their ancestors wove, a roof that listens to the sky. Hey friends, gaze down into a stone shaft by the riverbank. In ancient Egypt, priests used the nilometer to measure the Nile's rise. Columns, steps, or carved poles tracked the flood's height, predicting crop success and setting tax rates. Too high? Floods destroyed homes? Too low? Famine loomed? It was data drawn in ripples. Some nilometers were shaped like wells, others like staircases disappearing into green water. Each mark a prophecy in depth. Even in chaos, someone was measuring. You are now standing on a sunlit hilltop in Rhodes. Hellenistic engineers experimented with polished bronze mirrors, angled carefully to reflect sunlight over long distances. Some believe this system helped the famed lighthouse of Alexandria communicate during fog or night. Others suggest it was used in experiments of early light projection. The principle, catadioptric optics, now shapes telescopes. But it began with mirrors and light, and someone asking, what if we could speak with sunbeams? Hey friends, sit beneath a circle of sky. In Mongolian yurts, the central roof ring, called the tuno, connects all roof beams. It lets smoke rise, light enter, and the stars peek through. Tied with ropes, tensioned with care, the tuno keeps the yurt strong yet flexible. A structure with no nails, only balance. The circle above is sacred. It marks the center of the world. And sometimes the heart of a home is a hole open to the stars. Dear listener, press a rope into clay. In ancient Japan, the Jomon people decorated their pottery with cord-wrapped patterns. They pressed rope, knotted fabric, even fingernails into wet clay before firing. This was one of the earliest uses of texture as expression. Bowls weren't just useful, they were beautiful, tactile stories hardened by flame, and in each groove a fingerprint of time. Even before writing, hands had something to say. Hey friends, listen for the sound of something almost true. A Roman tale tells of a glassmaker who brought Emperor Tiberius a bowl that, when dropped, dented, but did not shatter. The man hammered it back into shape. Fearful of destabilizing gold's value, Tiberius executed him and destroyed the secret. Historians debate its truth, but the idea, flexible glass, stayed alive in imagination. Modern versions exist today, but the first whisper may have been 2,000 years ago. Sometimes legends hold the blueprint of what could be. Dear listener, pour a handful of time. In ancient Persia, time was kept with sand-powered clocks, not hourglasses, but vertical wheels rotated by falling grains. As sand dropped evenly, the wheel turned, powering a pointer or striking chimes. A smooth, weightless engine of dust, whispered seconds, measured silence. Even now, hourglasses borrow their grace from those early falling sands. Time, cascading like memory. Hey friends, slice snow with care. Inuit hunters carved snow knives from bone or antler to build igloos or cut wind barriers. The edges were smooth, sharp enough to shear snow without cracking it. A wrong cut meant collapse. The right one? Shelter. Knives were passed down, polished smooth, honed on ice, not stone. They weren't tools of harm, but of home. Even a blade can be gentle. Dear listener, float with me one last time. In ancient China, long before magnetic needles floated freely, sailors dropped lodestone on a leaf in a bowl of water. The leaf rotated slowly, pointing south. The water steadied the motion. The leaf cradled the stone. It was simple, effective, sacred. A direction found on the surface of stillness. And maybe that's the final thought, that clarity often comes when everything else is still. Hey friends, if you love this series of quiet rediscoveries, don't forget to subscribe. There are always more stories drifting just beneath the surface, waiting to be gently uncovered.